Alright. This side of the house is a bit tricky. Gets a fair bit of sun in the afternoon, mainly the top parts. Yeah, the bottom parts get, on the other hand, get a bit of dampness, and I don't know. It just feels like it gets a lot of sun at certain times of the day, but then it also is pretty sheltered at other times of the day. So I mean, you get a fair bit of rot happening. And just want to give you a couple of quick tips of how, or at least show you how I do my rot repairs, the rot replacements of timber, weatherboard timber. Basically, I use a multi-tool, which is an oscillating tool. But first of all, you would want to mark the boards where you're going to cut them out. Mark it with a builder's square, that one there, with a pencil, just to make sure that you're going to get a reasonably sort of straight line when you cut it. So just mark it like that, and well, I mean, it's a cheap sort of square, so if I do it one way it's alright, if I do it the other way it looks a bit different, but you know, I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but it doesn't have to be, as long as it's close. So and then you can cut it with the multi-tool. It's pretty noisy stuff, so you know, you wear an earmuffs or something, and then you're going to have to sort of pry it out, because you can't. You're gonna, you know, there's going to be some nails depending on where you're cutting the weatherboard from, but there's always going to be some nails somewhere, and those nails would also need to be cut out. But in order to get to the nails, first you need to sort of pry out the boards after sort of cutting them. First you need to pry out the boards using a little bar or something like that, pry bar, and it's best to use a little piece of timber with it as like a block kind of thing, just to make sure that you don't damage the board underneath. Yeah, so because if you just sort of push in the pry bar like that, and you know, then push against the board beneath, then that's gonna, you know, and there's a chance that it's gonna break in the middle or something like that, just from that pressure. So you protect it with using a piece of board or something, like some sort of a piece of wood. And so I'll do that now. I won't be able to show you on camera because I need both hands, but I'll show you what I need to do afterwards. Alright, went a bit easy because as I was sort of prying out the board from below, it just sort of cracked in half, so it's pretty easy. But you see there was a couple of nails in there, and but you also need to pry up the board above, because you need to be able to get to these other nails that are in there. I don't know if you can see it. So there's one or two nails in there, and that is still holding the top of this board as well. So now I've sort of moved it away, opened up a bit of gap there. You know, make sure, try to avoid damaging this board, because this one we're not changing, we're only replacing this piece. So yeah, just pull this away a little bit, open up a bit of a gap, and then I mean, you know, you might be able to use the same sort of tool if it's a metal and wood blade, but I prefer to use a reciprocating saw, and that's just a dedicated I think actually it's not just it's a metal and wood blade, and that I'll also be able to use to, because this one here, this piece, there's still a bit above this which hasn't been cut, so which is behind this board. Yeah, so in order to get in there behind, I'll show you what I do. I sort of get the reciprocating saw blade in facing outwards like that, and that way I'm able to sort of get it in. Sorry, the camera is all over the place. So push the reciprocating saw blade in there, and that way I'm able to get in to the back of this board and cut it from the back and all the way up to this next board, right? So that's what I will do now, but also I will cut these couple of nails in here behind this one and cut this one off too, or whatever, just pull it off with the hammer. But yeah, so I'll show you what it looks like afterwards, because I can't show you. Right, so I've cut this one off, but so just something you need to be aware of when you where's the piece that I removed? Okay, so this piece of board is in like that now, and if you cut these couple of nails or one or two nails that are inside here, you may be able to pull the board off, but that nail, the part of that nail is still in there, the part that was sort of underneath the board, yeah. So you've cut it, you cut the nail at the top of this board, but it's still going to be held by that nail, you know, but you've just sort of separated this board from this board, but this is still nailed to that stud, yeah. So yeah, I mean, this one has just pulled off because there wasn't much overlap there, but sometimes you can't just pull it off, so you still need to somehow sometimes you need to get to the back of this board behind it and cut that piece of nail that's still in there, you know. And that, you know, I mean, you can sort of experiment a bit. Maybe, like, sometimes the easiest way to do it is just simply cut around, you know, with the oscillating tool, and open up a big gap and make yourself enough room there so you can get in underneath with the reciprocating saw. But in this case it just came off, and so there's still a nail in there, and you do want to remove it, because when you're going to put the new piece of board in there, then otherwise it's just going to hit it when you push it up, and it might not give you enough room. So you know, the new board might stop somewhere here because it's hitting that nail there, so that still has to be removed. Okay, so just I'll just cut it. I'm just going to cut it with the oscillating saw, the reciprocating saw. Sorry, I'm not much of a carpenter, but just you know, this is something that I do as part of a paint job. We're ready to go, and yeah, very important that, you know, an exterior sort of carpentry job is only as good as the paint job that follows it, because exterior painting especially is you know, your number one priority is protection and you know, making things last. And in order to achieve that, you know, there's a reason why most rot on weatherboards is at the corners or at the joints, at the end grains, yeah, because that's where moisture gets in. And especially with modern timber, sort of, it's not very durable. The pine, all of this is pine. This house was reclad, I don't know, about 10-15 years ago, with just pine. And the old houses, originally this would have been some sort of hardwood, and that would have lasted a long time, but a pine doesn't last. So, and especially it absorbs moisture at the end grains, and if there's any sort of opening in the paint film or in the corners somewhere, water can get in, then it will just start soaking up the moisture, and eventually this will happen. And doesn't even take that long for it to happen. So what you want to do to avoid that is make sure you coat the end grains for protection. Yeah, give it a couple of coats of undercoat, primer, top coat, whatever, and that will stand you in good stead. All of the cut ends, all of the end grains, so even the existing piece and the new pieces that you're going to put on, you must coat the end grains with a couple of coats, I'd say, of decent quality primer, undercoat, whatever. And that's pretty much it, I say. There's probably not much point in showing you how to cut and fit the piece, because it's pretty straightforward. The difficult part is to remove, whatever you need to remove. There's still a bit to do here, but the concept is the same. Sometimes you got to remove some fittings or fixings or whatever. I'm going to have to remove that aerial cable, and might have to remove this sort of down pipe, but not a problem. Just one last thing is, when you do this sort of stuff and the house has building paper or some sort of like a vapor barrier or some sort of stuff like this, tough stuff this is called, some sort of house membrane, and then there's no way that you're going to avoid damaging that. And so I mean, whenever you cut the boards, you won't be able to avoid just cutting into that membrane. And so I recommend, I mean, look, I'm not going to go out and get this sort of same stuff, membrane, and replace it or any of that stuff. I'm just gonna repair the damage by using some duct tape. That's all I will do. And so yeah, I mean, I'll ask the hardware store what they recommend, but more than likely just a bit of duct tape will do the job. And it's not ideal, but there's no way you're going to avoid damaging this stuff. Alright, so yeah, have a good one, bye.